Hello. Today we're going to look at functions and their inverses. For this particular example, I'm going to share with you um, a linear function, a function of a line. And I'm going to share with you the procedure of how to go from an original function, a function such as y is equal to 2x plus 3, or f of x is equal to 2x plus 3, all the way down to finding the inverse function. Then we're going to take this function and then we're going to graph that function and its inverse. So let's first of all take a look at the function itself. F of x is equal to 2x plus 3. Now we can write this as y. Remember, y is equal to f of x. So we can say y is equal to 2x plus 3. Remember that x is the independent variable and y, this f of x and y, are the dependent variable. They depend on whatever happens, whatever goes on with the x. So now to take the inverse of it, and if we think about what the word inverse means, it means really to switch things up. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to interchange the x and the y values. And so what we have then is instead of y is equal to 2x plus 3, we have down here x is equal to 2y plus 3. All I did is simply change the x and the y. I switched those around from the original. We're going to get a totally different function at the end, which is the inverse of it. So now, solve for the y. That means isolate the y. Another way of saying it is get the y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. I have x minus 3 is equal to 2y. Then I want to divide by 2 on both sides. So I divide by 2. And that gives me, remember that this can regroup or renamed as 1. So now I have x minus 3 divided by 2 is equal to y. Now this is the inverse of the original function. So this is one function and this is another one. This is when the x and the y are reversed or inverted. Sometimes we use a small little -1 right above it, just to show. Let me make this a little bit larger. Just to show here, it's right here. Just to show that that is going to be, I'm going to make this a little bit so that you can see what I'm referring to. There's a little 1 here, -1. And that does not mean to a power. It means instead that it's the inverse function of it. So now let's take a look at this and let's graph these. And we're going to graph both functions. And we're going to do it, I like to use the program Desmos. It's called DES, or it's spelled DESMOS. Desmos is a free graphing calculator that you can use anytime, and it has a graphing and it has a lot of wonderful activities that you can use with it. But the first function is y is equal to 2x plus 3, and that's this function right here. So all along here, this is the point. This is what you have. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Now let's graph the inverse function that we just found. And we have that line like that. Now there's many ways of doing an inverse function, or of thinking or of graphing a function and its inverse. In this case, I used a calculator just to sort of show what those two lines look like. But I could have used the slope-intercept form. Notice that the y-intercept is 3 of the first equation, and then you go up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1 is the slope. You draw that line. In this other line, y is equal to the quantity x minus 3 divided by 2. Again, the slope, the y-intercept is going to be negative 3/2 or negative 1.5. You're going to go up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. Up 1 unit over 2 units. Now, one way of noticing, or one way that you might notice, is that these two functions here, these two lines, if I would write one more line, if I would graph y is equal to x, it's now in green. If I would do that, I would now have a line that is going to be the reflector of the other two lines. The other two lines, if I would fold them over the y is equal to x line, you would see that they would fold onto each other. And hopefully this will, you don't have to graph this line, but you can sort of imagine it in your mind and you can say, that's going to be, these two functions are inverses of each other because that line would go directly to it. Okay, I hope it helped. If you have further questions, please do not hesitate to ask your teacher or email me directly. Thank you very much.